right, hello. So it's a little bit different. I'm actually doing this meeting on Zoom, recording it. I'm going to go to the PowerPoint. We're on the going to be talking about graduate school. We're on PowerPoint number 9, the graduate school decision. Um, I'm going to try to record this today, and then I am going to go over the PowerPoint. Hopefully, by the end of class on Thursday, I'm hoping to record it tomorrow so you guys can have it and start working on your admission essay if you wanted to. But I will be recording um, the admission essay PowerPoint probably either tonight or tomorrow, and I'll have it up. Each one will be put into announcements. Let me know if you're having any problem opening this up. It's going to be a pretty big file. I'm actually recording on my phone too, just as a backup, because this is the first time I'm doing it. I'm a little nervous about it. But anyway, I hope everybody's doing good with the coronavirus going on. I did go by campus today and it is super quiet. It's a ghost town around there. There are people on campus. I think some classes are being held on campus. Not where I want to be though. So I'm glad we're going to be able to finish it this way and that we have the technology to. I'm going to go through the PowerPoint. I'm really going to skim through it because we normally stay in this PowerPoint for a couple of weeks. Now, we normally go into it and then cover something and go into it and cover something else like GRE and then the GPA calculation. But we're in here for a while, but I'm going to really try to condense it as much as I can. So let me know via email if you have any questions, and then I can start sharing those with class. But hopefully I cover the material well. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you and try to do this. Okay. So normally when you're talking about graduate school, they throw that term out a lot. Graduate school, I'm in graduate school. That is any post-baccalaureate program that you're talking about. That can be either master's or a PhD program. Although most people that are working on their PhD are really proud of that, and they make sure that you know that they're working on their PhD, not a master's degree. Going into graduate school, trying to make that decision is a big deal. I don't know about you guys, but I went into college because that was just the next step. That was the next thing to do after high school. That's what everybody was doing. That's what I was told, I was going to do. And so I did. And I fumbled around for many years because I wasn't ready and I didn't know what my major was going to be. And it was different, and that's okay with your undergraduate. You don't want to do that with graduate school. You need to make sure you know what you're getting into and that you're ready for it. It's got to be a sure decision. It's a big investment in time, energy, and money. Your homework assignments are going to be much greater, where you might write a 5-paper page in your undergraduate, you're going to be writing, 10, 15-page papers. There's a lot more reading, where you're going to be reading chapters and lots of different things. So it does take up a lot of time, a lot of energy, and it's most of the time more expensive. If you're looking at a program that's online, for you guys, you need to make sure that it's accredited the right way. Anytime you're looking for a behavioral science type of graduate school program, it should raise a red flag for you. There aren't many psychology APA accredited programs out there. There are some marriage and family therapy programs out there that are accredited and that you can do in the right way. MSW programs have been around for a while. There are programs out there, but you need to look at it and make sure it has the right accreditation. And you do need to look at cost. There are programs out there. Take, for instance, University of Southern California's MSW program. It is accredited. It is an awesome program, but it is also $85,000 plus. And you're not going to graduate. You're going to graduate with the same social work degree as you would at UVU or Boise State, or you name it. You're not going to make any more money than you were coming out of any other program. So that program, unless you just didn't have the means to move out of state and you couldn't get accepted in any program in Utah, that program is way expensive. But if that's what you're looking for, if that's where you want to be, that's fine. But there are more online programs out there that are cheaper. So cost should be in your consideration for graduate school. For me, I had never taken an online class at UVU. My program was totally online. I've never stepped foot on Kansas State's campus. I never had to. That program was a little bit more expensive. It is what I needed. It allowed me to work full time. It allowed me to be able to do a graduate school program. But it did take me a while to figure out how to become a good online student. My first semester, because I was really gung-ho, I really did well. My second semester really hit me hard. It was difficult. I would much rather today, it's still take a program face to face. It's just what I'm used to, and it's what I enjoy, and that's what works best for me. But my program was totally online, and I had to figure out how to become a good master's student and a good online student, and it really took some ramping up to do. So my schedule, after figuring things out, I would work from 8 to 5 at my job as an academic advisor at UVU in behavioral science. I would come home and I would eat dinner. I would spend some time with the family. Luckily, my kids were a little bit smaller then than they are now. I think my son remembers me being in graduate school. I don't even think my daughter does. But, then after putting them to bed, I was back in front of a computer for the rest of the night. I did a lot of my reading during the week, and luckily most of my assignments were due 11:59 on Sunday, so I would do a lot of reading and online posts during the week, and then I would do a lot of my paper writing on the weekend. And it took me a little while to figure out schedule and to be able to make things work and to be successful with that. So there are things that you need to figure out. There are professors that are better than others. That's another thing that I figured out, and a student that I know that is now in the University of Utah's PhD social work program, she realized in her master's degree she was struggling hard, and she talked to a student that was above her, and she said, I'm really struggling. What's going on? How did you do it? And the first thing they asked him is, who are your professors? And she told him, and she's like, well, I recommend that you take classes from this professor. So same as in undergraduate, the professors that you're taking classes from matter. some professors are just better than others. Some just you can't get past. You can't really, you might not have a whole lot of decision. Only if certain professors teach certain classes. But if you do have choice in your professors, take some time and try to figure those things out. So there's a lot that you have to figure out, trying to figure out what your professors want and things. So you're still going to have to try to do that in graduate school, and it's a lot to figure out as you're progressing through the program. So nothing changes, although it's more expensive. It is more in depth, and a lot of your classes here at UVU have prepared you for graduate school. Some of those harder professors, the Matt Drapers of the world, the um, Anton Tolman, I still remember taking him for a class, and I learned a lot in that class, and I used things still today in my interviewing skills. But his classes were just harder; they were more in depth, and most of you are ready to go to graduate school. So this cartoon is just saying, basically, hey, um, you need to have it figured out. You can read through that if you want to. Um, there are different types of graduate degrees. There's academic types of degrees, which is, Master of Arts, Master of Science, a PhD, which is a Doctor of Philosophy. Most people don't know that. It's not a Doctor of Psychology. It's a Doctor of Philosophy in, whatever you're taking a PhD in. There are professional type titles. A master's, an MBA is a master's of business administration. If you're going to be a social worker, an MSW is a more professional role. An MED, a master of education, or an EDD is a doctor of education. And the next thing that I want to talk about is, academic and professional types of masters. In an academic master's level, there's an emphasis on original research, field investigation, research methodology. It's typically a 2-year program. It involves a combination of comprehensive coursework and the production of a thesis. Most of you aren't going to have a thesis. You're in a more professional role, marriage and family therapist, social work. If you want to become a mental health counselor, you're going to have a practicum. You're going to have field work. You may have a thesis. I'm not saying that you won't, but most of the time you don't have a thesis. Your studies are based on other things. It's going to prepare you to work in your chosen field. In a professional role, and that's for you, mental marriage, family health disorders, MSWs, MFTs. Those are some of the descriptive titles. It's focused more on the practical application rather than original research. So you're going to learn certain concepts, and you're going to learn how to apply them. You're going to learn how to be a therapist. You're going to learn how to conduct an interview. You're going to learn how the questions to ask. So it's more on practical application rather than just all knowledge. And really in your first 2 years of your master's programs, your first year will be more of the educational. And whether you're in a marriage and family therapy or MSW, you're going to do your coursework the first year. Your second year is going to be more of your practicum and that practical application of your skills. You're going to be doing a practicum, learning how to become a therapist, working with people, working through your flaws, knowing what types of questions to ask. Usually a thesis is not often required. And some of those professional degrees are terminal. My degree was a terminal degree. Terminal means there is no PhD afterwards. Now, It doesn't mean that I can't go on to do a PhD in something else, but I'm going to have to pick a different subject. There are PhDs in social work. There are PhDs in marriage and family therapy. In psychology, there are definitely PhDs. In fact, that's most of the time what you want to shoot for in a psychology degree, unless you want to just stop and become a mental health counselor. But as was talked about in our last class, in social work, a master's degree is really about as far as you're going to go. You really don't need to go and get a PhD in social work to be able to do what you want to do. If you want to be in administration, if you want to be a professor at a university, you will go on to get a PhD in social work. That's about the only way you would need a PhD in social work. Most of the marriage and family therapists, you're just going to do what you're going to do with a master's degree. Now you can go on and get a PhD. You can work with a PhD. In social work, it really comes down to insurance purposes and things. You're pricing yourself out if you go on to get a PhD in social work. There's really no need to. With marriage and family therapy, it's a little bit different. You're not pricing yourself out. You're actually getting more training, and you can go on to see someone with a PhD in marriage and family therapy, but most people don't. If you want to have psychologist in your title, a health psychologist, a clinical psychologist, a social psychologist, you're probably looking at a PhD degree. Now, you can do a master's in psychology and to go on to become a mental health counselor, and not get a PhD if that's what you want to do. So you don't have to do therapy, go on to get a PhD, but if you want psychologist in your title, if you want, to earn that respect, to have those letters behind your name, in psychology, it really is a big deal to go on and get your PhD. But terminal degrees just means that there is nothing above it unless you change degree. But in most of our cases, they're not terminal degrees. There is a PhD level past that. In a PhD, a doctorate level, you're going to learn how to be a research scholar in whatever specific discipline you choose. In psychology, there's psychology is a big term. There's over 70 different types of psychologists you can be. So if you want to be a psychologist, you really need to figure out what type of psychologist you want to be. And in a PhD level, you are going to have to write a dissertation. You're going to have to defend it in front of a faculty panel, which means they will try to pick it apart a little bit. They will make sure that you know your area inside and out. And you're not expected to know how to write a dissertation. You will have dissertation classes as you go through your program, and you're not expected to know that right off the bat. You will have a mentor that will work with you your whole time. You will have to pick a dissertation that has not been covered before, or if it has, you're going to pick something different. It's got to be an original work, and sometimes you do get to pick some of the people on your faculty panel, but sometimes they're assigned to it, and there are some good videos out of people defending their dissertation. So I'll probably post some of those so that you can see it. But it is something you'll have to do. The difference between full and part-time, and I'm going to quickly breeze through this because the part-time is almost the opposite of most of those. If you there are part-time programs out there, um, and they do exist, but they're harder to find. So there are more full-time programs out there. You're going to complete your program faster than you would if you're doing it part-time. In fact, that's probably why you're doing a full-time program, is just to get done. And most master's degrees are going to take 2 years, but you can spread it out. My degree, I could spread it out as much as I could. In fact, one of the ladies that took my degree, a master's in academic advising, had a baby. She took some time off, came back into the program. Her program allowed her to do that. There are programs out there that are 3-year programs instead of 2. In fact, the University of Utah has a program where you can work through DCFS, the Department of Family, DCFS. I can't think of what it stands for right now, but Department of Child and Family Services. And that you can work for them and go to the University of Utah part-time, and it takes 3 years. And while you're working for DCFS, they will pay for your degree, your education. And you really don't have to sign on for very long afterwards. You do have to work for them for a certain time, but they will pay for your degree, but they do it part-time so that you can work for them and go to school full-time, and they have night classes in that program so that you can finish it. There are part-time programs out there. They're harder to find. There are accelerated programs out there too. There are a lot of social work programs that are accelerated. I'm trying to think of the other word for it. It's not coming to me, but you can finish in less than 2 years. There's a program in Florida where you can finish your master's of social work in 8 months. At the University of Utah, and UVU has one too. You can finish your program in a year's time, but to take those programs, or to be accepted in those programs, you have to graduate from a Bachelor of Social Work program. So they expect you to come in with a certain knowledge. In the 2-year program, you kind of repeat some of those same courses that you would have taken in your Bachelor of Social Work. But you come into that program in you take a summer, and then you take a fall, spring. So it's about a year. It's less than a year and a half. But those programs do exist also. The full-time programs are more rigorous. They're going to have, faster, more work. As full part-time programs spread that out a little bit, you're going to have better financing options for those full programs, because they want you to get through those. They want you to go to work. They want you to start paying back on those programs, or paying back on your student loans. And you enter into your career field earlier. And just to throw it out there, you are able to borrow more money for graduate school programs. Some programs will restrict you from working. In fact, it's a good question to ask programs: can you work during graduate school? Now, very rarely do schools restrict you from working at all. It's actually really, really rare. But some programs will say, well, we discourage it, or we highly recommend that you only work, a certain amount of hours, because they know how rigorous their programs are. So and that's why you're able to borrow more money. You're able to do that because hopefully you're going to go to school full time and do it during those 2 years and be able to support your family. Now, I know people that do. I did. I had to work full time. I was able to work full time. It wasn't easy. It was a lot of long, hard days. Um, my boss is doing his PhD program right now, and he's able to work full time and go to school full time. It's a little bit harder. But if you do plan on working, you need to make sure with schools, check with schools, how rigorous are their programs? How much do they recommend that, time that you work? You need to check into that if that's something that's important to you. Okay, master's degrees are shorter, less expensive. The admission process may be less competitive. Their programs it really just depends on how many they accept. So that's something that you want to check into. Most schools will make that known to you of how many people they accept into their program. So, you can usually find out about that. So ask the schools, how many people did you accept last year and how many people applied? And, that will tell you kind of what your odds are. UVU's program for their master's, let's just take their BSW because I know what they accept. They accept 60 students in, and they usually have about 100 apply. So, you've got a 60% chance of getting into that program. There are programs out there. The Marriage and Family Therapy program at BYU, they accept in 8 students a semester. They probably have anywhere from 40 to 50 apply, every year. So your odds are, 10% or less to get in a program like that. So you really have to make yourself stand out. You got to make yourself competitive. So it really just depends on, how many people they're accepting, how many people apply. So that's something you may want to check into. For a master's degree, the disadvantages, if you want to work at a university full time, if you want to teach, you really can't do that with a master's level degree. I have a master's, I'm able to teach. If you want to be a tenured faculty, you can come in and teach adjunct, be an adjunct professor, which pay isn't all that great. You're not going to have full benefits. So if you want to teach, you are going to need a PhD, and whether that be in social work, marriage and family therapy, or psychology. If that is in your plans, you need to push on and get your PhD. The number and kinds of classes. So, in your bachelor degree, you have 3,000-4,000 level courses. In a master's degree, it's going to be 5,000 and 6,000 level courses. And as you've come to know, is a 3,000 or 4,000 level course any harder than a 1,000 or 2,000 level course? Not necessarily. It depends on who your professor is and what that course is. But I used to have students that were taking family studies at the time, and they would say, "Oh, that's FAM's 4,500. I don't know if I'm ready for that class." And I'm like, "It's just a number. It's not going to be any harder than any other class you've had. You're going to have to put in effort. Yeah, is it more difficult than a 1,000 level course? Probably so, but don't let those numbers scare you." In PhD levels, you're looking at 7,000 and 8,000 level courses. Your reading, the thing to pay attention to is your reading, writing, and public speaking requirements are going to go up. A lot more reading, a lot more writing, a lot more reading research papers and things like that, and watching videos and things. So, that's something to consider. Research experience does help. Well, let's talk about it really quickly, because there is a difference between getting into an MSW, an MFT, and a psychology program. So, to break it down to you, in social work, it is more important for you to have work experience. They want to see that you're ready for a social work degree and that you know what you're getting into. Experience it weighs heavier than anything else. Now, if you have research experience, if you have, um, the more work experience you have, the better. In fact, our BSW program, it doesn't require it, but if you have it, you're going to get into the program a lot easier. And it's good, better, best is volunteer, internship, and work experience. So the more the merrier. If you have work experience, if you have research experience, and if the one thing with an MSW program that our BSW students are kind of come out in better shape. Doesn't mean that if you were a family studies, I've seen English students become and take masters of social work programs. But to be competitive with those students getting into those programs, you have to, because they're going to do a 450-hour practicum as they're in their BSW program. So, and a practicum is kind of an internship on steroids. They really put you to work. They where the rubber meets the road, you're there and you're getting some really good experience. Now, it doesn't mean that students if you're a psychology student, you're like, I figured it out while I'm in school, I want to do an MSW. Can I be competitive? Or a family science? Yeah, you can. You just need to get that work experience and be putting in your hours and close that gap on that 450 hours that they're going to have. And plus, they usually have more because they did stuff to get into that program. Now, MFT is kind of right in the middle. It's good to have, some practical experience, some human services types of experience, and some research experience is good. To have that, if you're looking at BYU's MFT program, you really need to have some research experience. So it really depends on the school. UVU's program, not as much. I mean, again, to have research experience is always a plus. That means they don't have to teach you how to do research. So schools are looking for it. Sometimes you can get into programs without a ton of research experience, but if you're trying to get into BYU's MFT program, just know you're gonna need research experience. They weigh it higher. They do a lot of research in their master's program, so it depends on the program. Now, psychology is a little bit different. If you're trying to get into a psychology program, you need to have research experience. They weigh that higher than work experience. So it's a little bit different depending on the program. Psychology is research heavy. That's what you need to have more than anything else. And then depending on what you plan on doing, if you're going to be a therapist, can you take interviewing skills? Can you take group therapy classes, and so are there some classes that you can take that will prepare you for your programs? Absolutely. I took some of those classes, and it helped me in my program. I knew that as an academic advisor, I would be talking to people, and I needed to have interview experience, and so I took as many therapy type of classes that I could take. Now it's ground level. It's certainly helped me out over some of the people that are in my classes, but so some of your classes that you're taking is a big deal. So experience, research experience, getting to know your professors well while you're in school, those are things that you can be doing. And then getting kind of that good, better, best volunteer internship work experience. So if you are working at places and you're putting in your time, and not everybody can go out and get a part-time or a full-time job working in human services. So if all you can do is volunteer, and put in some hours here and there. And the good thing about it is just chip away at it. Over time, you will begin to build on those hours and have something that will show on paper over time. It doesn't mean that you should quit your job, because I know some people are paying for schools, doing other things. Being working in a restaurant, being a server, you make good money. Because here's the thing about behavioral science, internships and work, it doesn't pay very well. Most internships don't pay. And even if you are working there full or part-time, that you're not making a ton of money. You're looking anywhere from $10 to $15 an hour, if you're lucky. So that's why some of our students don't work. But you do need to get some experience in some other ways: volunteer, internship, multiple internships. Let your volunteer experience do as much as you can. As much as time allows you to do, just get in there and do as much as you can. Okay, doctorate degrees, I'm going to skim through it. You become specialized in your field. As you guys watched President Holland's video, he was a specialist in whatever he covered in history. Same with you. You're going to do, research in some area, and you're going to specialize in that. You are going to write your dissertation on what you're doing your research on. You become specialized in your area, your field. So there are typically more funding opportunities. And in fact, in PhD programs, there's better ways to make money. I know people that can teach, people that can do research and make money doing research. There's lots of opportunities if you're working on a PhD to make money, to be able to support yourself, to be able to pay for your education. In fact, at the University of Utah, if you get into their PhD psychology program, you basically make money to go to school. They have on their website, whatever it is, but if you get into their program, and they really only accept a handful of people. If you had hopes of getting into the University of Utah's PhD psychology program, you've got to become a strong candidate. It is super hard. It is harder to get into medical school than it is into their program. They like students from outside of the state. They a lot of times don't look at our states as being really competitive against some of those students. So you really there's lots of ways to pay for school. Funding is there. You can borrow money, and you're borrowing money in master's or PhD programs from FAFSA. It's federal money that you're borrowing. Just remember, you have to pay that back, but you can borrow more of it. And what I would recommend is borrow what you need, because if you only need $10,000 a semester to go to school, there's no need to borrow 20 and live extravagantly, and some people can. Borrow what you need so that you're not paying back a ton of that. You need a PhD to be able to go on and teach, become a full-time faculty. It takes longer to finish those programs. You're looking at 2 years with a master's degree and 4 to 7 years for a PhD. You can finish really quickly, or you can stretch it out. Really, it comes down to however long it takes you to do your dissertation. There's programs that are more expensive, a lot more, higher number of classes, 7,000 and 8,000 level, reading, writing, public speaking requirements. When you're doing research, you're gonna get into conferences and things and go and present. So you're reading writing, public speaking requirements really go up, and your research. You will be doing research in a PhD program. Okay, I'm going to pause there for a minute. Let's see if I can get back.